So early in the season, after the murder of Helena's son by Blood and Cheese, Daemon Targaryen took off on his dragon Caraxes to Harrenhal in order to muster the forces of the River Lords and prepare a large land army for Rhaenyra's cause. He was also still ambitious and desired the Iron Throne for himself, and so his true motives were yet to be revealed. Whilst reaching the massive fort, he found it in shambles and almost empty. He was instead welcome and then started to prepare an army. While he was in Harrenhal, he kept on experiencing visions, which haunted him and showed him his inner demons, as well as changing his nature gradually. Harrenhal was built in the past over the desecration of the Wewood forests, which were linked to the old gods and the children of the forest. The place was also quite close to the Isle of Faces, which is an island in a lake called the God's Eye, essentially the center of old magic in Westeros. A witch called Alice Rivers was also present there, who guided him through the chaos and confusion, and at last led him to a weirwood tree in order for him to see what was in store, not just for himself but for the entirety of Westeros and the living. Before he reached the weirwood tree, however, he saw a strange ominous creature with antlers on its head and hoofed legs, as well as making a guttural animal noise. So what was that creature? Was it really real? So far as we know, there are no mentions of wendigos or fauns or fairies in the continent of Westeros. The first thing that comes to mind are, maybe these are the children of the forest, but they aren't muscular, nor do they have antlers nor hooves for feet. We've already seen them in Game of Thrones. They look way different. So in George R.R. Martin's lore, ancient magical beings known as the Green Men inhabited the Isle of Faces at the dawn of Westeros' history. These beings, who lived alongside the children of the forest and the first men, are described in nursery tales as having antlers and green dog skin, while the Maester suggests that they were just men wearing green clothes and horned dresses. They are also thought of to be a sacred order tasked with guarding the Isle of Faces in the Riverlands. They are still present during the Dance of the Dragons, as Adam Velaryon was said to have flown his dragon Seasmoke to the Isle of Faces and take counsel with the Green Men. But here in the series, this creature would have been one of these, and that it is Daemon instead of Adam that had some sort of a counsel with them by using the Weirwood Tree. So now we come to the vision, the Weirwood Tree itself first. This one here in the series has the face of George R.R. Martin himself, although much better looking. Ha, I jest. Some sense of humor would do you good. So weirwood trees are ancient and sacred in a Song of Ice and Fire. They are only native to the continent of Westeros. They are characterized by their bone-white bark, deep red leaves, and blood-red sap. These trees often have faces carved into their trunks, a practice started by the children of the forest and continued by the first men. These faces, which seem to cry blood, make the weirwood central to the worship of the old gods, serving as conduits for their presence and wisdom. Sacred groves known as God's Woods, which house these ancient weirwoods, are also places of deep spiritual significance where followers of the old gods pray and seek guidance, like the one present in Winterfell. Certain individuals, like green seers, can access the power of the weirwoods to see visions of the past, present, and future. And here in the show, apparently Daemon Targaryen was also able to get a vision after being thoroughly prepared through the hallucinations and visions in the Great Fort of Harrenhal. Now, let's take a look at the 7 visions he had and talk in brief about what they meant. The very first vision was of a very old and ancient weirwood tree, which seems to be the center of all the roots of trees in the world, acting like a magical and biological supercomputer server that all the others dump their data and memory into. At the center of it lies a Targaryen bastard who is yet to be born, but due to him being the Green Seer, he could go back in time and showcase what was to come. He is none other than Brynden Rivers, Lord Bloodraven, or you might know him better as the Three-Eyed Raven, the same old man that was seen instructing Bran Stark in Game of Thrones to use the weirwoods, guiding him through his visions in order to help the living against the dead. But we know how it all turned out, Brandon Stark as king. Although it has not been stated explicitly that Brynden Rivers is actually the Three-Eyed Raven, the scar on his cheek belongs to Brynden Rivers, as seen in the vision, and the actual Three-Eyed Raven does heavily imply that he is the Three-Eyed Raven. Now, the second vision that Daemon saw was through the eyes of a direwolf running through the snow and frost and coming straight to the White Walkers and the army of the dead. The way they showed this was as if Daemon was walking into the body of a direwolf. This vision was the dream of Aegon the Conqueror, the Song of Ice and Fire, how Aegon saw the Night King, the army of the dead, and the only way for life to be safe was if a Targaryen was ruling and uniting the realm. The dream also talked about a prince that was promised, which we shall dive into in a while. So the third vision here was of a bloody field full of dead soldiers and dragons. Spoiler alert, this would be the second Battle of Tumbleton, which will happen later in the series. In the vision, if you would look carefully, you would see 3 dead dragons and not just one. These are, sorry guys, the three-eyed raven beckons me to say the names. These are Seasmoke, Vermithor and Tessarion. The dead dragon in the front is of course Seasmoke, and the one right behind him is the Bronze Fury, Vermithor. And if you look closely, the one wing in the background is Tessarion, the Blue Queen. Things gonna get bloody this next season, but things might also turn out differently than what was written in the books. So now coming to the fourth vision, it is of himself drowning in water, which has a double meaning, one which is metaphorical, which might mean that he is drowning with the weight of his past actions, his burden, his sins, and the fact that he must relinquish his ambitions to be king. And the second meaning is that it is more direct. It shows him his own death in drowning in the god's eye, something that had already been said to him in the show by Alice Rivers, and what was said by Helena to Aemon. You put the pieces of the puzzle together. So the fifth vision is that of a red comet. He is actually seeing a celestial event that would happen roughly 170 years in the future. In the book A Feast for Crows, Maester Aemon confides in Samwell Tarly about his dream of seeing a red star bleeding in the sky. He then discusses the prophecy of the prince that was promised, which he initially believed to be referring to Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, but then later thought it was pointing to Daenerys. He also explained that Rhaegar believed that his son Prince Aegon was the prophesied prince because a comet, which Rhaegar interpreted as the bleeding star, appeared above King's Landing on the night of Aegon's conception. So this is the same bleeding star that Daemon sees in his vision, a red comet, an omen of what is to come, and who actually is the promised prince. Then this one shifts directly into the sixth vision, which is of Daenerys and her dragons. We see the eggs burning in flames, and Dany with her newly hatched dragons, signifying that she is the prince that is promised, as the term prince, as of the context in High Valyrian, was gender neutral, so it might be prince, it might be princess. And then we all know what happens in Game of Thrones. But as of the lore, George R.R. Martin hasn't even finished The Winds of Winter, the last book, maybe the second last book, somewhere there. Anyway, we might actually see GTA 6 before that. Think about it. Then his last vision was of Rhaenyra on the Iron Throne. The way that this was shown was right after Dany and her dragons, and it might mean that things must happen in a certain way in order for the threads of fate to weave a savior for the world. Rhaenyra must be the queen of the Seven Kingdoms, to be on the Iron Throne for even a while, sitting atop the throne, and then the butterfly effect will take over. So it might also mean that the prince who will come, the prince that was promised, would come forth from her bloodline as a distant descendant of the queen. And so with that, we come to the end of the video on Daemon's vision of a Song of Ice and Fire. Anyway, if you like this video, then watch this other one too, and do check out our channel for other dragon and monster content. We might have things we haven't seen before. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys.